Hello and welcome to this video. This is Mind the Music and my name is Sami, and today we are going to rank my top 5 R.E.M records. So let's get into it. R.E.M of course was founded in 1980 in Athens, Georgia, and the members stayed pretty much the same until the late 90s. Michael Stipe on vocals, Mike Mills on bass and backing vocals, Bill Berry on drums and Peter Buck on a guitar. And their style, it had a combination of different aspects of post-punk in the beginning, but also folky sounds, and also from 60s certain garage bands and pop bands sounds, which they melded into one alternative rock soup. So also you need to mention Michael Stipe's lyrics, which were pretty original, especially in the 80s at the time, and his singing style, and Peter Buck's guitar, Birds-like Rickenbacker sound, and of course Mike Mills's backing vocals and harmonies, which he sang on many R.E.M classics. But let's get into those in a bit. So let's get to the top 5. So in 1991, R.E.M was in a different place completely than what they had been in the 80s. So they were going to for a bigger sound, more popular sound, and album which had a very different kind of songs, you know, folky sounds, pop sounds, classical sounds, spoken word, even a rap, I'm afraid. So of course I'm talking about 1991's Out of Time, produced by Scott Litt. So at this time R.E.M were kind of tired of being the indie darlings, and they wanted to try and go to the mainstream a bit, and that succeeded. This album has been I think it was in the US charts for over 100 weeks, which is a huge accomplishment. And also it has sold, I think, more than 20 million copies, if I'm correct. So it's one of the biggest albums of the 90s. So what does it hold inside? Well, it's all over the place. There's folky pop songs, there's mandolin sounds, for example, in the huge hit Losing My Religion and Half a World Away. But there's also some tongue-in-cheek pop music, such as Shiny Happy People, which many people don't seem to like that much. But it also has the darker atmospheric songs like Country Feedback and Low, which are one of my personal favorites from this album. Yeah, it's a bit all over the place, and for example, the rap KRS-One is featuring in the first song, Radio Song, it is called. I don't dig it so much these days, but all around, if you think about the great songs on this album, I think it must be in my top 5, because the early 90s was when I first found R.E.M, like so many people of my age. So that's my number 5, R.E.M, Out of Time. Yeah, let's get to the number 4. So you're going to notice which era of R.E.M I prefer. So number 4, we have the album which was came out before Out of Time, so Green, which came out in 1988, produced by Scott Litt. And this was their first album on a major label, which was Warner Brothers. And this also had some of the poppy elements that would later grow on Out of Time. But I think when you now listen to this album, it's even more eclectic maybe than Out of Time, because there is, for example, the mandolin is introduced in this album for the first time. So there's the folky songs, but you also have very poppy songs like Get Up and Stand, which was a major or minor hit for them in the late 80s. But The making of this album is very interesting. They were trying to compose songs that were not typical R.E.M songs, so that's why this is all over the place, and Michael Stipe gets to really act these songs in a different way. For example, one of my personal favorites, "The Wrong Child," which is a pretty touching number from this album. But also you have "Orange Crush," which is one of the most harder rocking songs of R.E.M and one of the most well-known. I think it was in the Guitar Hero or Rock Band PlayStation game somewhere. So it's a very eclectic album, but it introduces the more acoustic side, which Peter Buck especially was interested in at the time. So, and also the label Warner Brothers, which is important to mention, they gave them total creative freedom after their independent years. So this is the first major label album of R.E.M from 1988. Agree. Now we're going to skip into the CD territory. I'm afraid I don't have the vinyl versions of these albums. So at number 3 we have from 1987, Document, and yeah, there it is. So Document was the first album produced by their longtime producer Scott Litt, and this was still on the IRS independent label. And you can immediately notice the first song, Finest Work Song. You can hear the sound is getting more slicker and more produced, but in a good way. This is not so mainstream as many would believe. So this is the album where they continued the harder, rockier sound of Life's Rich Pageant from 1986, and also they began more experimenting more with instruments like accordions and more acoustic instruments instead of just the basic band instruments that they had been playing in the previous albums. And this is, I believe, also one of the first albums where R.E.M went more political. They have more political songs here and environmental songs, which continued on the Green album, which I spoke about. So there's songs like "Exhume McCarthy" and "It's the End of the World," and so on, which tackle many socio-political issues. And this also had one of their first bigger songs or hits, which was "The One I Love." So this was a huge album for them. And also the lyrics are much more audible from Michael Stipe than you had on these previous 80s albums. So at number 3 you have Document from 1987. So we have 2 left. What's it gonna be? Number 2, well, we're going to the year 1986, Life's Rich Pageant. So I think this is one of the best R.E.M albums, definitely. The first 3 albums are great, but they also had a pretty different sound, more of a post-punk sound, but this is more harder rocking, but also infused with folky sounds and different kind of sounds beside the rock sound. And they also had a new producer, Don Gehman, on this album, and he insisted on more audible lyrics from Stipe, and also for Michael Stipe to tell what these songs are all about. So Michael Stipe really got deep into his lyrics at the time. And yeah, just as I talked about the Document, this is also one of the first albums where they tackle some environmental issues and political issues for the first time. For example, one of the most well-known songs from this album, "Fall on Me," and "Cuyahoga," and so on. And also when you hear the first song, "Begin to Begin," That's a very anthemic and political song right from the get-go. So this was also the most commercially successful R.E.M. album at that point, 1986. And the producer Don Gehman also recommended that the band would hire Scott Litt as a producer after this album, which they did, and Scott Litt, of course, worked with them for over a decade, I think. So he became their most used producer after this album. So, at number 2, Life's a Rich Pageant, a great album. So, number 1. Well, this is definitely a personal choice, but I think it's many people's favorite R.E.M. album, and also mine. In the early 80s, when I got to know R.E.M. better, this was the album for me, and I think it still is. And I also think this Automatic for the People from 1992 is also one of the best albums of the 1990s as a whole. So, in 1991, R.E.M. became a huge major act all over the world with Out of Time. So what did they do? They stopped touring, and instead they went straight back to the studio in 1991 and began to work on this album, which came out in the fall of 1992. So this was recorded in the Bearsville Studios, New York, in Woodstock, and Scott Litt, of course, producing. And this was also one of the albums where they swapped instruments while playing. So, for example, Bill Berry would skip from drums and play bass or something, and so on. They changed the instruments. And of course, when they started recording this, they thought they would make harder rocking sound album this time after Out of Time, but no, this is completely different and completely opposite. This is maybe their most atmospheric and pastoral album that they have ever done, and largely some of the songs don't even have drums, or if they do, they have very little touches of percussion. And yeah, this is a pretty moody album with heavy themes of death and loss, and but also some more uplifting songs. And one of the things that lifts this album up is the string arrangements, which were done by Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones, which you can hear, for example, in one of the greatest songs, Night Swimming. And also this album has many piano-led songs, organs, strings, and so on, and acoustic instruments. Yeah, but also this has also many classic R.E.M. hits like Everybody Hurts and Man on the Moon, but also very good deep cuts and my personal favorites, such as Try Not to Breathe and Find a River and Sweetness Follows and so on. So as you can see, this album is full of great songs and a great mood. And this has also sold a ton, I think close to 20 million copies. So pretty much the second most sold R.E.M. album after Out of Time. And this was really the period where R.E.M. was at their peak commercially, but I think also artistically. This is the R.E.M. album. So, quick mention also, Kurt Cobain was a big R.E.M. fan, of course, and this was one of the last albums that he listened to in 1994 before he died, and he had thought that the next Nirvana album, which would be their fourth album, would be more like R.E.M.'s Out of Time, Automatic for the People, more acoustic sounds, more moody and more cinematic and so on, but we never got to hear that, so that's just what happened in the early 90s. But yeah, That's my top 5. What's yours? Tell me in the comments and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.